Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's NTDP here. Just thought I'd make a little video talking about the U.S. National Team Development Program, a little bit about the history of the program, where these players come from, and also some of the competition that they play against as well. I have no notes prepared for this, just kind of doing it off the top of my head. And there's such an untapped market for junior and college hockey especially, that I kind of wanted to just talk a little bit about it and just kind of see where it goes. So anyway, I post in HF boards under the name NTDP. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I grew up playing hockey. I still do. And I feel like there's a lot of people that know a lot about the NTDP. I mean, Whalers fan is another one. He knows his stuff. But there's also a lot of people, primarily Canadians, that know what this program is, get to see them play a few times a year on TSN, for example. So they know who some of these guys are each and every year. But they might not know, like I said before, the history of it, where these guys come from, and especially who they play against throughout the season. I've also been to a lot of different places. I mean, I often travel to watch good hockey. There is a team that is very close to me, and when I say close to me, I mean as far as traveling distance. The Cleveland Barons U-16 AAA team is right down the road from me, and pretty cool. I saw Sonny Milano play as a 15-year-old there. Obviously, he went on to play for 2 years with the NTDP, then to the Plymouth Whalers, and played in two World Juniors. First round pick of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and he's played in the NHL. So what is not as known is his line mate was Nick Magyar, who I forgot who drafted him, or if he was drafted. I'm pretty sure he was. But he went on to play for the Kitchener Rangers in the OHL. So, I've been to the USA Hockey Youth Nationals. I went last year when it was in Pittsburgh, which is probably 2 hours and 15 minutes to the southeast of me. So I saw a lot of the players that are going to be on the U-17 team this year play in that tournament. I actually made a brief post about them on the NTDP off-season thread. So I went to go see, well, not went, I do often go see every year a couple of Erie Otters games. That's just 2 hours down the I-90 from me. I saw McDavid play there when he was 15, 16, 17. And my favorite team in the OHL is actually the Flint Firebirds. I was a diehard fan of the Plymouth Whalers. I would go up there a lot to watch them play. I've since followed them into Flint. I still do watch a lot of Firebirds games. That's my favorite team in the entire 60-team CHL. So I also go watch every so often the Youngstown Phantoms in the USHL, primarily when they play against either the NTDP U-17s or U-18s. I try and catch a game there. I saw Kyle Connor play for them in 2015. I went there when Austin Matthews and his group, Matthew Tkachuk and whatnot, were a part of the USA U-18 team. And I went to go see them play against Youngstown with Kyle Connor and company. He actually scored a goal in that game, Kyle Connor. So, I've been to various games, various levels of hockey. I have family in upstate New York, so whenever I go up there, I try to catch either an RPI or a Union game. I saw Shane Gostisbehere play 3 or 4 times in 2013 and then in 2014 with Union. Same player he is today. Played the same way in college. Phenomenal. So I guess that's kind of myself and my background. I mean, there's obviously more to it. I can maybe make a separate video about that. But anyway, kind of staying on topic here. I'm not too sure how long the video's got to be, but so the U.S. National Team Development Program came to be in 1996. One of the founding fathers of it is a guy by the name of Jeff Jackson, who is the head coach for the men's hockey team at Notre Dame. So the notion was, what if we put together a program to where we can house some of the best, junior-aged hockey players here in the States, have them, play together, train together, and with the notion of building them for future success both on and off the ice. Yeah, of course you want to develop better young men. You want them to be the best people that they can be, but also to get that familiarity with each other to boost our strength in international competition both now at the junior level and later on. And you see the results of that with the men's world championship, even in the Olympics. In the 2010 and 2014 Olympics, if you look at those rosters of who was on there, yeah, they're all NHLers, but you can trace a lot of those guys, you can trace their roots back to the national team development program, some of them within 2 to 4 years of each other. So um, it provides results both immediately, but in the future as well. Um, so they basically said, where are we going to house this program, right? They thought we could do it in Colorado Springs, where our U.S. Olympic Committee is basically stationed. And they said, well, how about maybe Minnesota as well? I mean, that's obviously a hockey hotbed. But they chose Michigan and Ann Arbor specifically because it'd be easier to fly out of, especially if they're going to Europe, which is where in their first couple of seasons they went a lot. Well, I mean, we've obviously been there every single year. There's international tournaments there every single year. But as far as just their budget and to make economical sense, they chose to put it in Michigan. First of all, yeah, it's popular with hockey, but also it'll make sense as far as dollars spent on travel and whatnot. So they, started out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, and John Wroblewski, who's actually one of the head coaches right now for the NTDP, him and Seth Appert, who is coming in this year as a first-year head coach with the program. Basically, John Wroblewski was one of the original team members in like 96, 97. So he actually, and he did an interview with Pete Krupski before last season started, Pete Krupski being the play-by-play guy for the NTDP. And he was talking about how back then, you got to remember, there was no social media. People didn't know what this program was or what this team was. They were basically just barn burning and going into anywhere that would take them and play. They went to Europe and played some semi-pro teams over there, some junior teams, and they loved it. I mean, first of all, you build some of the intangibles. You get to travel overseas, kind of fight that jet lag a little bit, I guess. You're playing in a foreign country. It's a completely different culture, different food, different arenas, different atmospheres with the chants and the singing and whatnot. That all takes some sort of an effect on players if they've never really played there before. It's an international ice sheet. So as the program continued to grow and grow, and as hockey continued to spread throughout the U.S., well, as far as popularity and whatnot, you're now seeing more and more players come from your quote-unquote non-traditional markets. Now, a lot of that has to do with the success and popularity of NHL franchises in those markets, but it's also the American development model as well, and how we're emphasizing skill development at a very young age. And you see certain programs that have really risen to become very, very elite and competitive. Like, for example, in California, the LA Junior Kings, okay? That's a program that's produced some very good players. They're one of the top U-16, U-18, AAA teams in the United States on basically whatever given year. There's elite teams in Arizona, the Arizona Bobcats, which produce the likes of Austin Matthews. And there's also examples of players that have grown up playing in those markets and haven't had to move to a Michigan, a Minnesota to further learn their craft. Matthews being one of them. He literally played in Arizona from the time that he was pretty much getting on skates to his U-16 AAA year with the Bobcats, had a ton of points. I mean, he was obviously great then. And he went to the U.S. National Team Development Program as a 16-year-old. So you see that with teams in Texas too, like the Dallas Stars Elite. Max Gilden played for them. Sorry. Caleb Jones played for that team as well. I think Seth Jones played for the Colorado Thunderbirds, if I'm not mistaken. But you see teams in those markets right down the street from me, the Barons here in Cleveland. I mean, have had some really good teams, but more importantly, some really good players come out of them. And most people don't even think of that program, really. I mean, the one of the top goalies in the Hurricanes program, Alex Nedeljkovic, played for the Cleveland Barons. And then he ended up playing for, I think, Bell Tire for 1 year, then went to the Plymouth Whalers, so on and so forth. Backstopped the USA at the World Juniors in 2016. So that's kind of getting into where these guys come from. I mean, the majority of the players that make this team as 16-year-olds, first of all, there's two teams. As I'm sure I may have mentioned, there's a U17 group and a U18 group, and it goes by birth year. So this coming year, the U17s will be the 2001 birth year. The U18s will be the 2000 birth year. And you basically play as a group. So this prior year, the 2000 birth year was the U17s. Well, they have now graduated to become the U18s this year. And you lose some players along the way. For example, Blade Jenkins signed with the Saginaw Spirit in the OHL, and he'll be playing there to forego his next year with the U18s. Max Jones did that a couple years ago. After his U17 year, he signed with the London Knights in the OHL, went there. But that leaves opportunities for other players to come in. For example, when Max Jones left in, 2015 or 2016, whatever it was, Kiefer Bellows, who was a very, very good 16-year-old with the Sioux Falls Stampede in the USHL, his team actually won the Clark Cup, which is the USHL championship that year. That left the window for him to come into the NTDP and was obviously one of the top players as soon as he set foot on the ice, him and Clayton Keller. So, that's kind of where they come from. There are high school players that do make this team, but that's where you're primarily still looking at, Minnesota and, Massachusetts, New England, that area. High school hockey still is really the best in those two markets. So high school players come from there, obviously, if you're really good. And then the rest are primarily coming from these U16 AAA teams, from teams all over the country. I mean, right in the Detroit area, I was going to say right here, right up in the Detroit area, you have teams like CompuWare, Little Caesars, Honey Baked, Bell Tire, Victory Honda, who produce players that go to the USHL, NTDP, the OHL, and they obviously are very, very good players. But you also have a lot that are coming out of other markets as well, like I said. Programs like the LA Junior Kings, the Cleveland Barons right here. Thunder AAA Hockey, which is based in the South, takes some of the best players from around the South now, and they've been very, very competitive. They used to send a team every year that went to the OHL, the OHL Cup, I think it's called, at the end of the year, basically the top midget AAA tournament in Ontario. And they, a lot of times, would hold their own. So then you look at the competition that these guys end up playing against. I mean, the U17 group plays a schedule primarily against USHL teams. They're often getting their feet wet, adjusting to the pace and the physicality of junior hockey, especially the top junior hockey league here in the States, the USHL, which has grown by leaps and bounds over the past 5-7 years alone. They also play in 3 international tournaments, the biggest one being the World Under-17 Hockey Challenge that takes place in November every year. It's a event put on by Hockey Canada, and some of the best 16-year-olds in the world are there, from countries like Russia, Finland. Canada sends 3 teams there now. They used to send 5. They send 3 there that are very, very good, very competitive. So it's a good measuring stick. Usually when that tournament happens, it's like 7 or 8 games into the U-17 season. And usually up until that point, they've played probably like 6 or 7 games against USHL teams. And on a lot of occasions have lost the majority of them. And that's a testament to how good the USHL has gotten as well. There's a lot of very, very good players there. And, as the U-16 team goes deeper and deeper into the year, by the time December and January comes around, for example, you see them start to have more success against USHL teams because they're just getting more and more used to the pace of junior hockey. Their confidence grows, things like that. There also is a U-17 Four Nations tournament, and I think there's also a Five Nations tournament that they do every year. I've been to that before as well. I went to go see that when it was in Ann Arbor. When the NTDP was housed in Ann Arbor. Saw guys like Vitaly Abramov for Team Russia, who is a standout player for the Gatineau Olympique in the QMJHL. That was the year that had J.D. Greenway on defense. That was that birth year for the NTDP. Adam Fox was a young 16-year-old defenseman out there. Remember seeing him. Clayton Keller was out there. And Joseph Wall and Jake Ottinger were both of their netminders, who I just saw this past weekend at the World Junior Summer Showcase. The program has since relocated to Plymouth. When the Whalers moved to Flint, USA Hockey bought the rights to the formerly the CompuWare Arena, now called USA Hockey Arena, which houses the NTDP. They play their home games there. The U-17s play primarily against USHL competition. They do play a game or two against a team in the North American Hockey League, the NAHL. The U-18s play, again, against USHL teams, but they also play between like 12 and 14 games against U.S. Division I college teams. So that's a really good measuring stick. There's times where, you've had some really good USA U-18 teams get blown out by some college teams that are very good. They also do beat some college teams as well. The group last year didn't have a whole lot of success. They got blasted by Boston University, which is, one of the very, very good programs in college hockey. But they've also, USA has had some very, very good U-18 teams that have beaten some very good college teams as well. I believe the year that Michael McCarron, for example, was with the U-18 program, it was the first time ever, I think, the USA U-18s beat the number 1 ranked team in college hockey at that time, and I think it was the University of New Hampshire. A couple years ago, 2015, when Austin Matthews and his group were a part of the U-18 team, they played Minnesota, who obviously is a college hockey powerhouse on any given year. I don't remember if they were ranked number 1 at the time. They were certainly up there in the top 5, I think. And they beat them in a very good overtime game. I think it was overtime. Anyway, that's actually what I find really cool and very interesting, how you have a team of 17-year-old hockey players that can play and beat college hockey teams with kids that are 21, 22, sometimes 23 on them, which are like men compared to boys, essentially. And the pace of the game is phenomenal. And those college teams are good. They're not chumps. People look at college hockey as a league for late bloomers still. It's not. There's some very, very elite players that purposely go the college route to get to the NHL. You might notice the shirt that I'm wearing, the Memorial Cup. I forgot to also mention, I'm not sure if I did, I can't remember. I've been to a Memorial Cup as well. I went to Windsor this past May to go see the St. John Sea Dogs play the Erie Otters. That's just kind of a little bit of a brief background on the NTDP, maybe how they started, kind of where they're at right now, where some of these guys come from. So, we'll see if I want to keep on making any more of these. This was just off the top of my head. I just thought I'd make a video or two talking about some of these teams in junior hockey and whatnot, maybe about some players, and just kind of see what's up with it. So, all right.